How's it everyone, this is Lolcohol with an update to the Grenadier Mercenary build. Today's video, I'm going to be going over the endgame version of the build. I've been late mapping red maps tier 12 to tier 14. I had a setup that got me very comfortably through tiers 1 to probably 11, and then I had to do a bit of a change, a defensive change to survive the higher tier maps. So I'm going to go over the various versions of the build. You can find all of this over on Mobalytics. For those of you who played the normal version of the build, you can use the same link, but there are now build variants. So just under build overview, we have the default. This is the previous version. Anyone leveling the build, this is like the level 1 to 65 version. Then the version that is from tier 1 to 11 maps. And then I'm also adding a late endgame version for tier maps 13 and above. So you can find all of this here. All the info is right on the site, all the gems. But let's go over some of the main changes. Firstly, the biggest one is this helmet, Radiant Grief. This just makes the build a million times smoother to play. So grab one of these. I think they're sitting at about 5 or 6x, and it is so worth it. I was really opposed to using this, but turns the build into a one-button build. So one thing that I got wrong in the previous video, I don't know where I got this from, but I thought that if you applied oil grenade and shot it with your explosive shot, it would create burning ground on which your gas grenades would explode more quickly. That isn't the case. I don't know where I got it from. I probably, just read the gem, which said oil created this way can be ignited by detonated skills or ignited ground, and then over here thought burning effects or detonated skills will cause the cloud to explode in a fiery blast. So I think I probably read that, thought that's how it worked. And in fact, reality, that doesn't exactly work. However, Radiant Grief does work. So the line enemies in your presence are ignited as though dealt 100 base fire damage. What will happen now is your gas grenades will go out, they'll make these big clouds, and then any enemy that touches it that is ignited will cause that entire cloud to explode. So let me just run a bit of a map. I'll show you how this works, and you'll see we go from using explosive shot and a whole lot of other stuff to just a one button shooting out these grenades, and they automatically explode on their own. Now I am still using my flash grenades just to blind enemies, so I'm not as they stay stunned and I don't die as often. I'm also occasionally still throwing out my explosive grenades, especially when I run out of charges of my gas grenade, but normally the gas grenade alone is enough to clear packs. But occasionally what happens is if your attack speed is higher than your cooldown recovery rate, you're going to get into a situation where you run out of gas grenades, and that's when you want to start throwing out your explosive grenades. So this is a tier 12 double corrupted map, and you can see how it functions. Throwing out these little flash grenades. Try not to, with your flash grenades, try to not stun yourself as well, because that reduces your evasion, which is not good. But you can see it clears fine. It clears rare packs super comfortably. I will go over the defenses. That is probably the biggest thing that has changed on this build from the campaign version to the mapping version is defenses. I've actually dropped a lot of offense, but as you can see, we're still performing fine. I don't have like super fancy gear or anything like that. And we're clearing so comfortably that I figured, you know what, let's drop like half the damage nodes on the tree and rather just spec into defenses, and it has been great. So as you can see, I'm not really using my explosive shot that much. I am using it occasionally. When I get to a boss, it'll be more obvious because I will run out of gas grenades. Also, I want to use my oil grenade, light that on fire. If I run out of gas grenades, shoot out some explosive grenades and then detonate them with the explosive shot. So this still does have some functionality. It does still have some use, but for the most part, we're just running around pushing our little gas grenade and occasionally like a flash grenade. as well to stun stuff. There we go. So that's how it plays. Super smooth, super comfy. Radiant Greave just best in slot. You kind of, at this point, I would say it is mandatory. Once you equip it, you will understand just how brilliant it is. Not a whole lot else has changed. The kinds of modifiers that we want on our gear, you can find that all in the previous version or on Mobalytics, but it's just things like life, resistances, attack speed. One thing that is very important though is gain mana per enemy killed. You may struggle with mana. So this modifier really relieves a lot of pressure from your mana floss. If you can just get a little bit gain mana per enemy killed, it makes a massive, massive difference. So try and get that. Usually for bosses, you have enough damage that you're not going to run out of mana floss charges before you kill it. So gain mana per enemy killed. There is another modifier that I must point out on your bow, or I think you can get it on your amulet as well, which is plus levels of projectile skills. This is very powerful. However, it will make your skills cost a huge amount extra mana. So I bought a bow at one stage with plus 4 level of projectile skills. It did increase my damage, but it made it unplayable because it effectively doubled the cost of my skills. So this was sitting at like 170 mana per attack. I couldn't afford to use it. So if you are using plus level of projectiles, make sure you have enough mana regen or mana on kill or something, but I really struggle with that mod, so be careful of it. If you see it, don't overvalue it too early on before you're actually able to use it. But you can see the rest of the gear: life, resistances, life, resistances, life, resistances, move speed. Amethyst rings, super good. This is more for like red maps, tier 11 plus. You're going to be encountering a lot more chaos. So I'm currently sitting at 58% chaos res, and the rest of the resistances are capped or almost capped. So gearing, fairly simple. But let's have a look at the tree. So to start out, we've got this endgame, level 82. So this is from ending the campaign, early maps. Gearing, very simple. The only thing I'm saying is get your Radiant Greave as soon as possible. The rest of the itemization, very similar. The gems that we're using, also very similar. Check these out. Wind Dancer is a new aura that we are using. This improves our evasion rating per stage. We're mainly scaling for defenses, armor, and evasion rating, leaning more heavily into evasion rating. And this Wind Dancer improves that. Herald of Ash, still super great, improving our clear, and then just using the gas grenade to explode everything. It's all explained here. But let's just have a look at the tree. So if you play the campaign version, this will look fairly familiar with a few extra things. What have we added? For the most part, it is just defensive stuff, armor and evasion rating, armor and evasion rating. There are some things here that I'm not 100% about. Here's more armor and evasion rating. Some of these are conditional mods. So when I say conditional, it means some kind of effect that happens when something else happens. So you have increased armor and evasion if you haven't been hit recently, or if you have been hit recently. So usually those are things to stay away from, but in Path of Exile 2, these actually seem to feel a lot better. So things like this, armor and evasion rating, really nice. Over here, we're getting more armor and evasion rating, chance to evade melee attacks. This I'm not 100% sure on. Defiance, 80% increased armor and evasion when on low life. I'm really on the fence about this. I'm pretty sure it has kept me alive a few times, but I'm not super sure it is worth the 2 points. But I don't really regret getting it. But you could also pop these 2 points over here, but it didn't feel terrible taking that. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it kept me alive. Over here, grabbing this movement speed and attack speed if you killed recently, again, a conditional. So this makes mapping feel a lot smoother, and it is really worth it. There aren't as many bosses as expected in the end game, so taking this, you really do feel the benefit of it fairly consistently. Over here, ailment threshold per dexterity. There's no indication in the character sheet if this actually does a whole lot. I took it. I think I saw myself getting frozen and shocked and ignited and stuff less often. I did take it, but only grab it if you start feeling yourself getting affected by ailments more regularly. Over here, cooldown recovery rate, you're going to need this. Cooldown recovery rate, very important for the end game with your gas grenade once you get your Radiant Grief, because you're going to be wanting to get your charges on your gas grenade much more frequently. And then over here, more conditionals. Evasion rating while surrounded, damage while surrounded, attack speed while surrounded. I took this because of Breach and Expedition and Ritual. Actually, it felt surprisingly good. When you're in those situations when you're getting swarmed, you just have a bit of extra damage and a little bit of extra survivability. So this felt good early on. Down here, this is all pretty much the same. And then at the bottom, gain 8% of evasion rating as extra armor, just to push up your armor a little bit. So primarily focusing on armor and evasion, you got that avoidance layer and the mitigation layer. Over on this side, more conditionals, 100% increased evasion rating if you haven't been hit recently. If you grab the other side, I think it kind of works out to like 70% increased evasion rating. So you can grab these two. It'll really push up your evade chance, which feels very good. And then over here, multitasking for more cooldown recovery rate. That's a tree, very similar to the rest, but just with a lot more defensive stuff. As for the Ascendancy, I don't even know which of these other points are good yet. So once I've tested it, I'm not 100% sure any of these are good. The Witchhunter is a bit of a weird one. I'll probably go for Decimating Strike. And then I've explained the passive tree over here, which attributes to take. So give it a read through. But there is now also this late endgame version. And I can actually show you this in-game because this is what I am doing in-game. Now you can see this tree is very different. Firstly, a lot of the conditionals that I was describing in the previous version, which were good up to about tier 11, I have now instead changed over to head over to the right side of the tree. So we're still grabbing this evade chance, still grabbing our cooldown recovery rate. However, I'm dropping this damage over here, chance to ignite, dropping that, dropping this top thing. For 2 points, this is probably worth it for the damage, but I feel like my damage is fine. I'm dropping this Giant Slayer because there's not enough rare and uniques in maps. And again, I felt like my damage was fine. Heading over this way, I grab the other side for more evasion rating, and then grabbing Catalysis, 20% increased elemental damage with attacks, great damage, and 5% of physical damage from hits taken as damage from a random element. So you will use your resistances to reduce 5% of physical damage instead of your armor. So this is a bit of physical mitigation. Very nice point. Over here, grabbing more evasion rating. Over here, grabbing more evasion rating and movement speed. And then heading up this way, evasion rating. And then the big thing, acrobatics. Can evade all hits, 70% less evasion rating. So the downside on this is massive. Losing 70% of your evasion rating is a lot. I'm currently only sitting on 57% evasion rating, and that's with my 4 Wind Dancer stacks up. I really do want to get this higher. I would like it to be sitting at about 70% at least with my acrobatics. However, what is so good about this is it allows you to evade other attacks that you usually wouldn't be able to. Things like slams and AoEs. Those are the things that started feeling like they were killing me a lot in the end game. So grabbing acrobatics, even though it has this heavy downside, will make you more well-rounded and more able to evade the things you actually need to evade. So if I were to, let me see, let's go to Doriani. Let's just unspec this. I have about 15,000 evasion rating. And then if I equip that again, I have 4,000. So it's a huge loss, but from playing, this feels so much better. Having this 57% chance to evade, and I can evade everything, feels a million times better than having 84% chance to evade, but I can only evade, half the things and not the things that are most likely to kill me. Then over here, Coming Calamity, 50% increased fire damage while affected by Herald of Ash. This is some damage compensation for the other points that we have removed at the bottom. And it is consistent damage versus the conditional damage, which is only when there is a rare in our presence. So this is actually excellent. One of the other things that I've changed, and I think a lot of builds probably need to start doing this, is using dual sockets. These are plentiful around the tree, and they allow you a lot of flexibility with your character. You can really fine tune what you need. So On duels, I'm aiming for evasion rating. That's a prefix, as you can see over here. And then other things like increased damage with crossbows, increased attack speed with crossbows, increased elemental damage, fire damage. All of those are very good. You can see here's another one, projectile damage, attack speed with crossbows. Over here, I have another one, evasion rating, attack speed, damage with crossbows. Here, evasion rating, damage with crossbows. If you can get just 2 mods on a duel, that's enough. That feels really good. And then there's another one over here. That'll be another 2 points that I can grab that. There's a whole lot dotted around the tree. So duels are the thing that really just round out the build. You can fill in all the gaps that you need. You can get the attack speed, the damage, the evasion rating. And then I'm going to be aiming to get just a very high evasion rating chest, which will scale very nicely with this over here. 100% increased evasion rating from equipped body armor. And then just getting your chaos res up. Promise you, once you get into red maps, you're going to feel like, man, I need chaos resistance so badly. I really, really need it. So check out for amethyst rings. If you want, use a trade site, but you can also get an amethyst ring. If you have any essences of ruin, you can use this to try and get some even more chaos resistance on it. That is it for the build for now. If you want to see like a final update once I've hopefully cleared all the pinnacle bosses, let me know. But this is how I have built it, and it's feeling really good. I do still die in some like crazy maps, but this has been serving me very well. The plan is just scale some evasion rating, get a better weapon to increase my damage, and level up my gems. So all of it's there. If you want any other help, I'll be live on Twitch. You can check out the Mobalytics guide, which is linked in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Patreon and all those other places. That's it. Have a wonderful day. Catch you in the next video, and bye-bye.